You know how car makers are trying to fill in every single niche you can think of with models like the compact executive saloon hatchback BMW 3 GT, for example? Well, this is the latest niche-busting model from Audi. It's the A3 Saloon. And it may be a bit cruel to call it a niche model because while it may sell in small numbers in the UK, its popularity in China and the US means that Audi expects this model to be the most popular A3 worldwide in 2 to 3 years. It's based on the same wheelbase as the 5-door Sportback and offers the same range of engines. And from the front, at least, it looks the same too. The surprising thing is that every single body panel has been changed. But you might only really notice that when you step around to the back. Here, you get really smart, narrow taillights and a nice looking 3/4 view with great squat proportions. I know the standard A3 isn't the most inspirational design, but I reckon this is the best looking A3 in the lineup. From behind the wheel, the A3 Saloon feels a lot like any other A3 really. But what does that mean? Well, it means that you've got this really great cabin. It feels like it could be pulled straight out of an A5 and A6, something a lot more expensive than this car. And you kind of get a driving experience that matches a much more expensive car too, because the refinement at 70 miles an hour is fantastic. There's barely any wind, road, engine noise, none of that. It's really, really great. And this car has every single kind of gizmo thrown at it. So it's got the adaptive dampers and progressive steering. It's got quattro all-wheel drive. It's got an S-tronic gearbox, this particular example anyway. But even with all that, this car doesn't feel particularly sporty. I mean, it's very, very capable, but there's a neutrality to everything and the steering is a little bit numb. So all in all, it doesn't end up being that exciting. Certainly not as exciting as you might find in a BMW 1 Series Coupe, for instance. From launch, the A3 Saloon is available with a 2-litre TDI offering 68.9 mpg, and there are a couple of petrols too. The 1.4 TFSI has some clever cylinder deactivation tech, so it manages 60.1 mpg, despite having 138 brake horsepower. There's also a 1.8 TFSI, and later in the year a 1.6 TDI joins the range. So the great thing about this new saloon body shape is that this car has the biggest boot out of any A3. It's 425 litres, which is 45 litres more than the Sportback, and it's only 55 litres down on the A4. And if you want to make it even bigger, what you can do is just fold down the rear seats, and that frees up 880 litres of boot space. Now, despite having the same wheelbase as the Sportback, the A3 Saloon does have a slightly lower roofline. So what that means is, if you get in the back seats, you'll notice that while the legroom is pretty much the same, it's pretty generous. I'm 6'2" and I've got enough. My head, if I sit up straight, does touch the roofline. That'll be fine for shorter people, and it's kind of fine for me as well if I slouch down a little bit, but you almost feel like you shouldn't have to. So the A3 Saloon may be a big success in markets like the US and China, but it's probably not going to be such a big sales hit in the UK, where everyone loves hatchbacks. But that's not to say that this is a car completely without merit. I mean, it looks great, and it's great to drive too. And it probably makes a pretty good alternative to the Audi A4, because this car will cost about £4,000 less than the equivalent A4. You may have to sacrifice a tiny bit of headroom in the back seats, but that still looks like pretty good value.